Hello everyone, I'm Keith Platfoot with Kviation, and today we're going to look at adding a carry forward totals entry in Smart Logbook. So a carry forward totals entry is useful when you've already logged time in another logbook, be that a paper logbook or maybe another logbook app. And you want to transfer those previous totals into Smart Logbook to serve as a starting point so that your overall totals are correct as you start logging new flights. So let's take a look at how to do that now. So we're starting out here on the opening screen of Smart Logbook. We don't have any flights logged yet. And to add the carry forward totals entry, we're going to tap the menu button up here in the top right and choose carry forward totals. So this opens up the carry forward totals editor. It looks a lot like the flight editor in Smart Logbook, except that several of the fields which are not relevant have been removed. For example, there's no route field for our totals. But you do see here that we can add any of our previous totals in these durations fields. So let's go ahead and do that now. Now, by default, we only have the total time, our previous total time here, but we can tap Add Duration to add additional fields. So if we tap that, we can choose to add our previous, say we have some PIC time, let's say we have some dual time, a little bit of night, and maybe some cross-country time. Okay, so now we have all of those fields. Let's go ahead and enter our previous totals. Let's say we have 150 hours total time, 100 of that is PIC, maybe 50 of that is dual, got 5 hours of night, and let's say 25 hours of cross-country time. Now, in addition to logging a previous time, we can also log things like previous takeoff and landings. So let's go ahead and add some of those. Let's imagine that we have maybe say 200 takeoffs and landings for a day and 5 takeoff and landings at night. Okay, so now that we've logged this previous time in totals, we'll tap Done here, and you can see that the carry forward totals shows up as a row in our flight list, and as we log flights, they're going to show up on top of this. You can also see, if we open up the total screen here, that we in fact have our totals logged here from that entry, even though, as you can see in the top, we haven't yet logged any flights in Smart Logbook. Now, if we were to go and print this now, let's take a look at that. So if we print this using, for example, the Jeppesen Basic logbook printout, you can see here on the first page that we do in fact have our takeoff and landings totals shown here in the amount forwarded row there. And we also have our previous time that we logged here showing up in the various columns. We have our 5 hours of previous night, 50 hours of dual received, and for example 100 hours of PIC previous time. If you look at the first page though, you'll see that there is one thing missing. So the Jeppesen logbooks have these aircraft category and class columns, and normally these would be populated with, for example, it would say single engine land, multi-engine land, and you would have the relevant times there. You'll notice we don't have any totals, any previous totals in the amount forwarded rows for those columns. And the reason this is because we haven't actually told Smart Logbook that our previous time was in a particular category. But this is easy to fix, so let's go ahead and do that now. So what we can do is we can go back into our carry forward totals entry. We can tap that to open the editor back up, and you'll see this aircraft model field at the top. Now this is how we can tell Smart Logbook what kind of time, what kind of aircraft that time was logged in. So if we tap that, we go to the aircraft model screen. We don't yet have any models, so let's tap to add the first one. And let's say that this was our our single engine time, which was done in a Cessna 172. And on this screen, we're going to specify that that is a single engine land aircraft. Tap done. And now you'll see we have that aircraft associated with our first carry forward entry. Now let's also say that we had some previous multi-time. So how would we do that? Well, we can actually add additional carry forward entries as needed. So let's go here and do another carry forward totals entry. This time, let's imagine that our multi-time was actually split among multiple different aircraft, and we just have the totals. So what we can do in that case is we can add a new aircraft model, but we can give it a name that kind of represents multiple multi-engine aircraft. And so we're going to call that aircraft model just AML as a kind of shorthand. We still need to specify that its category is multi-engine land. While we're here, it's probably not a bad idea to check the multi-pilot box if that's applicable. This will be important if you're printing, for example, the EASA logbook format, since it has a dedicated column for multi-pilot time. And let's tap done there to save that model. So now in this carry forward entry, we're going to log all of our previous multi-time. So as before, let's go ahead and add the relevant fields here. Now let's say for a multi-time we were actually the first officer. So we're going to log this time as second in command. Let's say we still had some nighttime. So let's just log these three previous totals here. Let's say we had 100 hours of previous multi-time total. All of that was second in command time. And let's say 10 of that was at night. And then we'll also log our previous takeoff and landings for multi. Let's say we had 20 takeoffs per day, 20 day landings, 5 night takeoffs, and 5 night landings. Okay. Now, if we save this carry forward totals entry, you can see we now have 2. And if we jump to the total screen, you can see that we now have the accumulated total of all of our previous time, both single engine and multi-engine here. And if you were to jump back to the PDF at this point, you can now see that these times are also reflected in our printout. So we now have a single engine land column with the correct amount forwarded there, and also multi-engine totals are showing up. So if you're actually going to be printing the Jeppesen or, for example, the EASA formats, this is basically all you need to do. So you just essentially add a carry forward totals entry for each kind of aircraft class and category, and that's it. Now, if you happen to print one of the other formats, for example, the Transport Canada or maybe the India DGCA format, there's one more step. There's at least one more step that we're going to need to do in that case. And let's take a look at why. So if we look at the Transport Canada logbook format, we can see here that even though we specified the aircraft category and class for all of our previous time, this grand total on the Transport Canada logbook is still showing 0 hours. And if we look at the second page, we can see that actually none of our dual and PIC and co-pilot columns are actually being populated. So why is that? Well, the reason is because unlike the other formats that just kind of break it out by single versus multi-engine, the Transport Canada format also subdivides our time by day and night. And so you'll see all of these columns are grouped so that we have to fully specify whether our previous time was single engine or multi-engine, but also if it was day versus night, and then finally whether that time is dual, PIC, or co-pilot. So how do we do that in Smart Logbook? Well, for flights it's easy. So if we're logging individual flights, Smart Logbook is actually able to figure this out automatically. So For example, if you were logging a flight in a single engine aircraft and you didn't specify any night time, but you did log PIC time, well, Smart Logbook can automatically figure out that that time belongs in the single engine day PIC column, as shown here. The problem is that for the carry forward entries, we didn't specify whether that time was day versus night. But let's go ahead and fix that now. So the way that we're going to do that is with something called combination duration fields. So these are a way that you can specify that time applies to multiple duration fields. So let's open up that first carried forward totals entry again and see how we would do this. So we already have PIC, dual, and some nighttime here. What we need to do is create new fields that break that nighttime into PIC, day versus night, and dual, day versus night. So if we tap the add duration button down here, and then if you scroll to the bottom, you'll see an option for new duration field. So tap that, and then at the very bottom of this screen, which has all of our built-in fields, you see new combination field. Now if you tap this, you'll see a pop-up that lets you choose two existing built-in fields that you want to combine. So in this case, let's say that our previous time, all of our previous PIC time was during the day, but we did have some dual time that was both at day and at night. So we're going to first create a combination here for that PIC daytime. So we're combining PIC and day, and you'll see that new field has been added here at the bottom. Let's add another combination for dual received during the day, and we have that field. And lastly, let's add a field for dual received at night. Okay, so now you can see we have three new fields here. If we tap back to the entries for the fields for this entry, you'll see them at the bottom here. Let's go ahead and turn all three of those on, and you can now see we have entries in our carry forward for logging those times. So let's do that now. Let's go through here and say, yeah, all of our previous PIC time was actually during the day. And let's say for a dual time, the majority of that, let's say 45 hours, was during the day, but we did have 5 hours of dual night. Okay, so now we've fully specified where this previous time belongs. So we'll tap done to save the entry. And of course, we're going to want to do the same for our multi-engine time here. So we're going to kind of go through the same drill here. We're going to tap add duration to open up our fields. And we're going to need to add a few fields here for the multi-time. So specifically, our multi-time was all second in command time. So we just need to say whether that second in command time was day or night. So we kind of do this the same way. We're going to make a combination field for second in command day, and also a field for second in command night. Okay, so now we should have all the fields we need to fully specify where our hours belong. So let's turn these last two that we just added, turn these on for the carry forward totals entry, and you can see those showing up there. And let's take that 100 hours of second in command time and divide that up between second in command day and put those 10 hours of second in command night. Okay, so you can now see we have done this for all of our multi-time. We've fully specified whether our second in command time went into day or night. So we save that. Now, if we are to regenerate the Transport Canada PDF, you'll see that this time we will actually have the grand total showing up correctly. And if you look at page 2 here, you'll see that our columns 1 through 10 now all have the correct value. So now we do have our single engine, dual time kind of split between the day and the night columns here. And we also have our multi-time showing up correctly as day versus night. So great. So we fixed the issue with the day versus night, but you'll notice here that there's still one issue here, and that is with our cross-country column. So the cross-country columns in the Transport Canada format are also split up by day versus night. And you'll see here, even though we actually only log 25 hours of day PIC time, for some reason this is showing up also in the dual column, and then we also see 5 hours showing up under night dual, which is not correct. We should only be seeing this under cross-country day PIC. So what's happening there? Well, what is happening is that in Smart Logbook, those combination fields we looked at just now, they let us combine two built-in fields. But the problem is, in this case, for this carry forward cross-country time, we actually would need to specify three fields, right? We need to specify that the time was cross-country and that it was day or night and that it was dual or PIC. And Smart Logbook doesn't have a kind of a combination field that can handle three different fields combined together. But the good news is there is a workaround. So the way that you can do this is to add a third carry forward totals entry, and this one is going to be specifically for the cross-country time. So what we're going to do here is add a field. Let's add our cross-country field to this entry, but let's also add that PIC day field that we created before. And what's going to happen is if we log time in both the cross-country, let's take our 25 hours and log that here as previous cross-country time, and also log those 25 hours as pilot and command day. Now when Smart Logbook goes to print the logbook, it will be able to infer that all of those cross-country hours here also were pilot and command day. Now, you will notice that we're going to leave the totals, the total field here empty. And the reason we do that is because we don't want to double count that cross-country time toward our total. So we want to make sure that we don't log this in two places. One last thing I'll point out here on the carry forward editor here is that we also have a remarks field, just like flights. And so it might be useful here to, for example, add a little remark that says cross-country, just so that we can see that this is kind of an entry dedicated to our cross-country previous totals. So let's tap done here, and you'll now see, of course, that we have three distinct carry forward totals entry. And the very last step here is we do want to make sure that we remove those 25 hours of cross-country time from this original entry that we made down here for our single engine time. So let's go ahead and just clear that cross-country time from there. And again, this is so we don't double count that time. We want to make sure that that 25 hours of prior cross-country time only shows up one place. So we tap done there. Now, if we go back one more time and generate our Transport Canada PDF, you will now see that our cross-country times, our columns here are correct. So now we have only one column with those 25 hours, and that is the day PIC cross-country column here. So now, at this point, we have all of our previous time logged, and we have it all printing in the correct columns. So we should be ready to start logging new flights in Smart Logbook. So I hope this has been a useful introduction for you for logging your prior hours in Smart Logbook. If you have any questions, of course, reach out to us at feedback@thesmartlogbook.com. Thanks very much.